ask you about, you brought up Gaza and Russia. Let's talk about and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Let's look at how India's relations, and you talked about national interest, we've talked about this in the past, India's national interest in both these contexts. So for instance, Russian oil has gone up to about 40% of our, contributing to about 40%, close to 40% of our oil imports from about 2%. And we've got India abstain several times now on any resolutions that the General Assembly has tried to bring on Gaza because of its relationship, because of our relationship now strategically with Israel.
That's right.
And I've spoken to former ambassadors who say that, you know, the last resolution, even allies of Israel have actually voted against Israel on that one. So help us evaluate what you make of India's national interest.
Well, if we find it out. So the last vote of the General Assembly, India voted for a ceasefire. And there are very few countries now left supporting Israel's continuing this war, and India is no longer amongst them. So that's good. But earlier, you're right, it was strategic calculations. I'm guessing, no one explained it to me, but I think the feeling was that India felt that Israel is too indispensable a partner in a number of areas, particularly relating to defense and security issues, and that they felt, therefore, that they have to show Israel the appreciation that an abstention would give them, as opposed to asking them to abandon what they judge to be their strategic interest in continuing the conflict. But now India, like in common with the rest of the world, said enough is enough, this has to stop. And they have now gone ahead and voted in the General Assembly.
And so many countries have now said that they will recognize Palestine. India has already done that. But
we were the first country outside the region to recognize Palestine.
So is there a diminishing of India's moral authority, moral position, given that we understand pragmatism and national interest is what drives nations on this front?
Well, there is certainly a change between the sort of moralistic India of the Nehruvian era and the more pragmatic India since then. But did that change only happen now? I mean, one could argue that Indira Gandhi signing the Indo-Soviet Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation in 1971 was a very pragmatic act, especially since it involved an adversary in the Cold War at that time, and then proceeding later to ignore it when it had served its purpose in the 71 war with Pakistan. Those are very pragmatic and very sort of almost realpolitik kind of actions. So it's not that India has been always moralistic or moral even in its foreign policy actions and choices. We will always put national interest first, but every country does that, Anuradha. Even those countries that profess to have a moral foreign policy will use morality as a fig leaf to justify their naked ambitions. And you've seen this, frankly, with, for example, the Brits and their moral foreign policy when they joined the Americans in invading Iraq. Or the Americans in some of their interventions in Latin America, again under the guise of morality. So I think in all fairness one has to accept that whenever anyone says moral foreign policy, I think you quickly make sure your wallet's still in place. Because there is a certain level of insincerity involved in all of this vocabulary. Everyone is looking after their national interests. But I think we have now realized that there are some aspects of our national interests that are better served by taking a stand on principle. So rather than use the word moral, I would use the word principle. And there is no doubt that the suffering of the people of Gaza has simply crossed all acceptable limits to the human conscience. And that's why I think India voted the way it did last week.